Now, let's explore the focus on the nature of language. When we talk about linguistics proper, we're referring to the broad study of grammar, which includes syntax, morphology, phonology, and semantics. But there's a deeper layer that sociolinguists and many other scholars emphasize, that language isn't just an abstract system. It's inherently connected to social contexts. This means that language use varies depending on social categories, activities, situations, roles, and purposes. For example, the way we speak with friends versus in a formal job interview can be quite different. As Taylor, 2013, points out, understanding this social aspect is crucial to fully grasping how language functions in real life. Moving on, we also see a focus on society and people as social beings. This perspective originated in sociology and social psychology, but over time, it expanded to include language itself. Analyzing both public and private language use gives us insight into the collective world view of a society, how people are categorized, what they are valued for, and how power dynamics shape interactions. Finally, it's important to see language use not just as communication, but as a key social activity, an essential practice that reflects and reproduces social structures. This approach helps us understand language as a window into social life itself. Most discourse analysis primarily works with language data, like talk and written texts, but it can also include other forms of communication such as pictures and film. The key idea here is that we analyze this data based on the principle that language actually provides evidence of social phenomena. As Taylor pointed out in 2013, this means that the way people use language reveals a lot about social contexts and practices. Now, moving on to the rejection of the simple communication model. Most, if not all, academic discourse analysts disagree with the traditional sender-channel-receiver model of communication. This older model suggests that meaning is straightforward. One person sends a message, it passes through a channel, and another person receives it. But this view is overly simplistic. It ignores how social practices shape meaning and how context influences interpretation. For example, meanings can develop over time or vary depending on social situations, what we call indexical meanings. These are context-dependent and can change depending on the extended communication or social setting. So, rather than seeing language as having just one fixed meaning, a social view of language is essential. This perspective recognizes that language is embedded within social practices, and that understanding these practices is crucial to fully grasping what communication really involves. In essence, discourse analysis aims to uncover these social meanings and practices, moving beyond the limited view of simple transmission of information to a richer, more nuanced understanding of how language functions within society. Beyond surface meaning, as Taylor, 2013, explains, analysis looks at how interaction between speakers is shaped and limited by its social context. This ranges from the immediate conversation to larger national or cultural situations. It's about understanding how social factors influence language choices and interactions. We also consider grammatical details, how the choice of a single word or structure can carry different implications. Small differences can change the meaning or tone of what's being communicated. Furthermore, analysis involves looking at words, expressions, and arguments as social and cultural resources. These are linked to specific groups or contexts, helping us see how language reflects social identities and power dynamics. Another key aspect is how speakers adopt certain characters or roles, like a concerned parent or an authoritative expert. These roles shape how messages are delivered and received, adding another layer of meaning. Switching to G's perspective, he talks about 7 building tasks in language as world building. Every time we speak or write, we're constructing or shaping reality in these 7 areas. It's like creating a shared world through language. Language doesn't just describe the world, it actively builds it. For example, when an umpire says strike, they're making that concept real within the game. Or when a minister says, I now pronounce you husband and wife, they're making a marriage happen through that speech act. Discourse analysis, then, involves asking questions about how language is used to perform these world-building tasks. It's about understanding how language creates social realities. So overall, this slide emphasizes that language is much more than just conveying information. It's a powerful tool for shaping social worlds, roles, and identities, something we always need to keep in mind when analyzing discourse. Let's take a closer look at each of G's 7 building tasks for discourse analysis, starting with the first one, significance. Here, we're asking how language is used to make certain things or people seem important or not important, and in what ways that happens. It's about understanding the power of language to shape perception. Next, we have practices or activities. This involves examining what activities the language is enacting, essentially, what actions or behaviors it is prompting others to recognize as happening. It's key to realize that language and these practices reinforce each other. They bootstrap each other into existence. Moving on to identities. This task asks us to consider what kind of identities the language is enacting. That is, how it influences others to see the speaker or the subject as a particular person or role. It also involves looking at how identities are attributed to others and how that helps the speaker position themselves. The fourth task is relationships. Here, we're exploring what kind of relationship the language seeks to establish or maintain with others, whether it's friendly, authoritative, distant, or collaborative. Language can shape how we connect with people, even in subtle ways. Then there's politics. This asks us to consider what perspective on social goods the language conveys, what is considered normal, right, or high status. Since language always reflects and influences social values, it's inherently political, deeply embedded in societal power dynamics. Next is connections. This involves analyzing how language links or disconnects ideas, things, or people. Does it make certain ideas relevant or irrelevant to each other? How does it create bridges or barriers within communication? Finally, signs, systems, and knowledge. This task looks at how language privileges particular sign systems, like choosing English over another language, or technical terms over everyday words, and how it influences what ways of knowing or believing are valued or marginalized. By understanding these 7 building tasks, we can better analyze not just what language says, but what it does in social contexts. They help us see the deeper layers of meaning behind everyday communication. Now let's look at some of the key thinking devices that guide our inquiry and help us analyze how building tasks are carried out, as G explains. First, we have situated meanings. These are the specific meanings words and phrases take on in actual contexts of use. Meaning isn't fixed. It's assembled on the spot based on the context, and it can even be negotiated between people. For example, consider the word coffee. If I say the coffee spilled, go get a mop, we're talking about liquid coffee. But if I say the coffee spilled, go get a broom, suddenly coffee refers to grains or beans. The meaning shifts depending on the situation, which is why understanding situated meanings is so important. Next, we have social languages. These are different styles or varieties of language used for different purposes. They help us enact and recognize different identities depending on the setting. For instance, in everyday conversation, I might say, "Hornworms sure vary a lot," which is informal. But in a scientific paper, I'd say, "Hornworm growth exhibits a significant amount of variation." These different ways of speaking serve different functions and reflect different roles or identities. Finally, there are figured worlds. These are the simplified, often unconscious stories or theories we hold about how the world works. They help us navigate daily life and connect micro-level interactions with larger social structures. For example, the concept of a bachelor is built around a set of social assumptions about unmarried men, what they do, how they behave, and how society views them. These figured worlds shape our understanding and influence how we interpret situations. So these 3 tools, situated meanings, social languages, and figured worlds, are essential for analyzing how communication and understanding operate in various contexts, and they help us get a deeper grasp of the building tasks we're studying. Now let's look at intertextuality, which is all about how words in a text allude to or relate to other texts. whether through direct quotes, indirect references, or subtle allusions. For example, that phrase, "You got a problem with that?" in Wired magazine actually alludes to the tough guy talk often heard in movies. It's a way of connecting the current message to broader cultural conversations or references, making it more impactful. Next, we have discourses, often called Big D. These are the big, socially recognized ways of saying, doing, and being that help us enact a particular identity. Think of them as the underlying frameworks or patterns of behavior that shape how groups or individuals present themselves in society. Then there are conversations. With a capital C, these are like public debates or ongoing themes that society or social groups focus on, kind of like the societal talking points. For example, the debate around smoking involves themes like individual freedom versus social responsibility. Everyone understands the sides involved and the kinds of people associated with each stance. All of these tools, intertextuality, discourses, and conversations, are essential for analyzing how language shapes social meaning. They help us see how texts connect to larger cultural narratives and how those narratives influence identity and social debates.